Hi, I'm Wade, and this is Marshall Close Up, and I'm joined here today with Andy Rudd. So Andy, how has radio changed in the last few years and the technology with that?
Radio has actually changed in the past, I want to say 20 years dramatically. I mean, it's made a complete 180 because of technology and the internet. It really changed not only how we broadcast, but how we have to try to market towards the listening audience, because not only do you have the radio, when I was in high school, you had CDs, maybe your tape deck, if you were still at a tape deck, and the radio. Yeah. But now you have a multitude of choices to listen to. I listen to YouTube videos on the way home sometimes. So it's actually taken away from my job. But with the technology, radio has had to change with the way that we try to attract listeners and keep listeners, but it also the way that we make money, because the radio makes money by selling advertisement. And so with advertisers thinking that radio is, people are listening to this and doing this and not listening to the radio as much, that takes away from radio. And I kind of see terrestrial radio, dwindling even more within the next 30 and 40 years.
Yeah. And what kind of strategies do you guys use to attract more people to listen into the radio?
It just depends on, it really depends on what side of radio that you wanted to look at, because there's certain, if you wanted to go into sales and do the marketing in that, which is not my forte. I was the entertainer. I always said I was the dancing monkey. The sales use a multitude of different strategies, but the sales also has to work with us in a sense that I have to take your business and sell it to, make it attractive in 30 seconds, no less, 30 and 60 seconds, and try to get people to come to your business. So I can do that with inflection in voice and, doing certain things and trying to get you to listen, or doing it with music, or telling a story, or making silly sound effects. It just depends on, and that's gotten harder over the years, because I've done that for about 30 years now. And what I used to do for attention for about every 15 seconds has gone down to about every 7 to 8 seconds now, where I would change the background music. It was just a subtle change in the spot, but I would just change the background music, and it just broke it up a little bit. It didn't make it seem like it went on and on. And now I have to do that when I do that, it's about every 6-7 seconds to keep people's attention.
Yeah. Who was your major influence to get into radio?
Nobody really. I mean, I was not I wanted to be a history teacher. When I graduated Marshall County High School, my plan was to be a history teacher. This was the mid-90s, and man, did I dodge a bullet. No offense, history teachers out there. No, I'm just kidding. I love radio. I fell into radio. I had Coach Stafford, who was in the Media Arts technology class back then, and I loved the class. But when I got out of high school, I wanted to have fun with my buddies. And one of my other buddies called the basketball games for, the Marshall County's high school television station, WMCHS, or I can't remember what it was called back then. Is that what it's still called?
I don't think so.
Okay. But he got out of it and got a job at our local radio station, WCBL, that calls the Marshall County basketball games. And he got a job down there. And they also wanted him to work weekend midnights, which we still ran CDs, and the internet was not around as prevalent. Very few people had it in houses. And so we still ran CDs, so you had to have a live person there all the time. And he did not want to work from midnight on Friday night to 6 a.m. Saturday morning and then do it Saturday night, Sunday. As an 18-year-old, no, you don't want to do that. But I did. I didn't. I was kind of a geeky guy. I didn't do anything. I hung around with my buddies, and I was like, sure, that sounds like fun, make money and listen to good old rock and roll music. And 30 years later, I'm still doing it. I've been all over the dial in this area. I had a chance to move out of the area several times, but I have children, and I didn't want to move away from my kids and whatnot. So I've been all around the dial on this area.
And how did you start your own podcast, and how successful was that?
I started it with a friend of mine who actually lives in Texas, and it was for a video game. It was for a mobile game that is still around and still does very, very well. It's called Marvel Contest of Champions. It's a Marvel superhero fighting game. I told you I was a geek.
Yeah.
We started, he wanted to do the podcast, and I told him I have decades of radio experience. I can do this, I can help you do this. So we started doing this podcast unofficially. We called it the Unofficial Marvel Contest of Champions podcast. Yeah. And we messed around for a little bit, and we had a few listeners, and then the company that made the game recognized us, and our listenership went up to, we were doing it weekly, and we were having like 60,000 listeners weekly, which was pretty good for us, And so we kept it up for about 3 or 4 years. We're currently on a hiatus because some of the people certain things have happened in their lives that we've had to kind of pause doing this every week. But Marvel actually sent us to New York City. I got to go to New York City to participate in the secret Marvel headquarters up there and play the game for a little thing, and it was pretty cool. So the podcast still I get tons of emails and people asking all the time about the podcast, if it's coming back, because we've been gone for about a month, and people are still but I'm kind of enjoying the break, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And how do you enjoy your job? Or like, how much do you enjoy your job, I guess?
I enjoy my job so much is that I could make a ton more at something else around here, probably.
Yeah.
No, I grew up with, my dad worked at the tire plant in Mayfield, and I always heard him my whole life saying how much I hate that job, I hate that job. And I said, I'm never gonna hate my job. And I have quit a couple of jobs that I just did not like. I made good money, I just did not enjoy going to work because I enjoy radio so much. And with any job, there's going to be days when you just hate it and you want to just scream and run off and tell all your coworkers to go somewhere else. But I love everything. It doesn't feel like I'm when something happens at the radio station, I have to go and do something extra. It doesn't feel like I'm having to go to work.
Yeah. Just feels like
feels like it's fun. Yeah.
And how many different radio stations have you worked at?
I thought you was going to ask me this question a minute ago, and I stopped myself. Okay, so I started at WCBL in Benton. I went to WKYQ, and I worked the outlaw hours for a couple of years. I got a job in the early 2001, 2002 on 96.9. I begged them to let me do the morning show. And so they gave me an audition on a weekend. They said, yeah, you go in here and do this, and so it's a morning show. You're having to kind of bounce off people. So if you don't have a good relationship with this other person, it doesn't work real well. And so we started, and I started on the morning show on 96.9 in like 01, and I was on the morning show for many years. And probably some of your teachers around here listened to me when they went to high school. So when I got done with the morning show on 96.9, AJ took over, and AJ's been there ever since. I worked at the classic rock station, the rock station. I've worked in country stations down in Tennessee, a bunch, all of them, just about.
That's awesome. And if you could give anyone my age a word of advice, what would it be?
Study. Pay attention. Yeah. Pay attention to your stuff. Don't be lazy. And I know that everybody will have some other different piece of advice, but from my if you have some sort of idea or you have something that you want to do, do not set on your butt, do it. Because if you don't do it, someone else will do it before you.
And what do you, or is there a way that you think we can make radio easier or better?
I think radio needs to change with how we do it, in a sense that it's been done the same way for about 50 or 60 years, and it needs to be different. In a sense that it doesn't always need to be a DJ talking in music and a DJ talking in music. Sometimes you can have a long interview segment on your radio station or something different. Something needs to change with the formatics of radio in order for it to survive.
Okay. So how do you think they could, I guess, change it then? Or like, is there a...
Program directors are going to have to, they're going to have the want to do it. They're going to have to go against what the corporate bosses say, do it this way, here's the format that you're going to have to do, and they don't want to lose their jobs. So it's going to take, little bitty radio stations like the one I work at now, 95.7 in Calvert City, I've changed the format on something completely different that has never been done before, where I can play new stuff and old stuff at the same time with a 60-year gap and it not sound bad. And the way that I've done it has kind of made my owner a little mad sometimes, over the years, but it's worked. So it's just going to take that.
And what kind of stuff did you get to do with your going to New York and...
Circling back around to that?
Yeah.
Just a normal 2-day, it was just a 2-day New York trip, but we got to go to the Marvel, little secret Marvel headquarters in there and see all of the stuff that they had in there.
And y'all guys couldn't take any pictures or anything?
No, they wouldn't let us take any pictures inside.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So with that, could you or did you get to do like an interview and...
I asked, that was one of the things that we wanted to do while we were up there, was see if we could actually get some sort of recording or do a segment for the podcast up there in there, and it was
shut down.
Yeah, it was shut down.
That's sad.
Yeah, they're pretty strict.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching, and have a great day, everybody. And this has been Marshall Close Up.